All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for being here. And the practice today, we're focusing on pelvic movement, pelvic mobility, and how that translates into balancing the boat and how you can use your pelvis, your core, the hips here for steadying the boat. And we'll be doing pelvic movements in different positions so that you can get the feel for it. And just keep in mind that most of this is pretty subtle, but that doesn't mean that it's easy. For some of us, the challenging part is the coordination or learning how to make this connection from the brain to a certain part of your body to do what you're asking it to do. So sometimes the challenge is in making that connection and feeling what's happening in your body. Because we're focusing on the pelvic movements, we will be using the core and some of the back muscles and the hip muscles. And it can get a little bit more challenging if you're not used to doing that. So feel free to rest at any time, modify, adapt any of the movements. Sometimes just taking a little break and pulling the knees to the chest or rocking them side to side or just shaking it out can help you then come back to it a little bit later. So as far as props go, I'm going to use the blanket mostly for padding my knees, but I will come into a position that I'll use it under my shoulder. You might like to have the blocks here. We do need at least one block. And if you don't have one, make sure you have a blanket or a towel that can be folded up to give you a little bit of height for that. We are going to start on our backs. So whatever position is comfortable for you here. So knees could be bent or straight. I'm coming into a knock-kneed position here just so that my hip muscles don't have to work at all to hold the position. But this is what works for me. Might be something different for you. Take a moment here before we start to move and allow your body to adjust to this position. So, if you're practicing this at the end of your day, then this might be a very welcome position. This might be the first time that you have been able to allow your torso and your head to be supported since you got up this morning. And take these first few moments here to bring your attention to your breath. Whenever we're talking about core muscles, we're not just talking about abdominal muscles. You think of the core as a canister or like a can of soup. The sides of that can are abdominal muscles, back muscles, spinal muscles. The top of the can is your diaphragm, this breathing muscle here between the lungs and the belly. And the bottom of the can is your pelvic floor. Movement of the breath actually changes and shifts the pressure within the abdomen. And so that's why I cue the breath with the movements, especially the spinal movements. Start to lengthen out your breath, slow it down, smooth it out. This is the breath we're going to use throughout the practice, this lengthened breath. So if you notice at any time you start to hold your breath or your breathing becomes choppy, sometimes that's your cue to take a break, rest, return to this lengthened breath. And we'll set an intention for the practice. So I'd like you to bring to mind the reason you've shown up today. Some of you said, I need yoga at the beginning of the practice. Some of you show up almost every session. If it's the same reason you're showing up, it's about taking care of your body. If it's about recovery, it's about making this mind-body connection, whatever your reason for being here. And keep it simple. It doesn't need to be a full sentence. Maybe 1, 2, 3 words. Bring this thought to the front of your mind and breathe with intention. All right, we're going to start to move here. So I'll have you bend the knees and place the feet flat on the floor. We're going to do pelvic clocks, and we're going to do this in a few different positions today, but we'll start here on our back. And your pelvis is this ring of bones here that's below your spine, above your femurs, your leg bones. And it's the connection from the lower body to the spine. And if you think about the pelvis, the sacrum is at the back of the pelvis. The bottom of the sacrum is your tailbone, and the top of it is where the spine connects to it. And if you think about the tailbone, you think about your back of the pelvis being a clock, resting here on the floor. Think about your tailbone being 6 o'clock, and the top of the sacrum being 12 o'clock. And we're going to press into 6 o'clock. So you're pushing the tailbone into the floor and pulling the top of the sacrum and the low back away from the surface. And then we press into 12 o'clock. So you're pressing the top of the sacrum into the floor while the tailbone tips up towards the ceiling. We'll go back and forth with this. So if you've done this class before, this is pelvic tilting, familiar territory, different terminology. We're pressing into 6 o'clock, so tailbone into the floor. And then we press into 12 o'clock, so top of the sacrum into the floor. And the breath with this is inhale into 6 o'clock. Exhale, press into 12 o'clock. Keep going here. Inhaling, pressing into 6 o'clock. Exhaling, pressing into 12 o'clock. Do that a few more times. And so if you think about where 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock are, think about where 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock are. And don't worry about like, which way is the clock facing here? Just assign one side 3 o'clock and one side 9 o'clock. And then bring that clock back into center. So neither are you pressing into 6 or 12. Now we're going to press into 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. So press one side of the pelvis into the floor and tip the other side up. So pressing into 9 o'clock while 3 o'clock lifts, but you're not lifting your whole hip. And then switch it. Press into 3 o'clock and lift 9 o'clock. And we go back and forth. So you're pressing down into one side of the pelvis and lifting the other hip up. So let's inhale as we press into one side and exhale as we press into the other. And your knees might shift a little bit here. And if you're going nice and slow and controlling the descent and the lift, you're going to start to feel your core working here, obliques mostly working in this position. And notice how your torso, your rib cage and shoulders and your head are staying in place. So they're not rolling to one side like your pelvis is tilting. 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. All right, bring this back into center here. Just let it go. Just gently rock the knees side to side. So we've kind of worked in 2 of the 3 planes of motion here. The third plane is bringing those knees and that pelvis back into center. So if that back of the pelvis is a clock, imagine the clock is crooked and we're going to tilt it towards one side. So I'm pushing one sitting bone towards the foot while the other side rotates up towards my waist, and then I switch it. So I'm going to pull one sitting bone or side of the pelvis up towards the waist. So I shorten that side of the waist as the other elongates. So inhale as you lengthen out through one side, and then exhale as you lengthen out through the other side. If you think about that tailbone or the 6 o'clock, it's like the 6 o'clock is wagging a little side to side here. And trying not to push into the feet for this, so then you're using all core and back muscles, not even really hip muscles here, not your glutes, hopefully not your hip flexors. All right. And then bring this back into center and let's let it go. So pull the knees into your chest, hugging in gently here at the shins or the backs of knees and rocking a little side to side, or maybe you're circling the hips and knees here. So we got some of that movement in. We're going to see it again in a different position. We'll do it in standing here in a little bit. And then I'll have you roll onto your side. So come into a fetal position, and if you have that yoga block, bring it with you onto your side. And support your head either with the arm or slide a blanket or a towel underneath it. I'd like you to straighten the bottom leg and bring that top knee and shin forward. So, and I have that knee resting on the yoga block. It could be that folded blanket or towel here. So we're disassociating the lower body from the upper body here as we come into this twist. So this leg, top leg that's bent, is going to stay here resting. I'm going to stretch the top arm forward and then sweep this top arm up towards the ceiling and bring it behind you. And you could turn your head in that direction. And then exhale, bring that arm forward. So you don't have to keep this knee nailed down here, but try not to let it rotate or slide back with you as you inhale, sweep the arm back, and exhale, sweep it forward. So it might be that you're not able to rotate quite as far if you keep that top knee in position. And there's a reason to try to push this movement here. So whatever comfortable range of motion you have. If that mid and upper back gets stiff, often the whole spine stiffens up. So I find that sometimes the key to unlocking the neck and the lower back is working in between in this thoracic spine. And rotation is kind of where it's at. That's the thing that opens it up. All right, coming onto your side and then switch to the other side. So we'll straighten the bottom leg, bend that top knee and hip so that inner knee, inner calf is resting on this yoga block or folded blanket. Support the head here so you're not straining through the neck. Top arm comes straight forward from the shoulder, and then we inhale, sweep the arm up and back and looking in that direction, keeping that knee relatively in the same place, and then exhale, bring it forward again. We'll do a few more. I did this, I took a yoga class last night and I heard the teacher called this movement of like opening a book or turning the page in the book. This arm is that page and you're just following that page as you open and close it. So stiffness in the spine can lead to stiffness in the pelvis, which then makes it hard to make those small little adjustments on the boat to steady it. And unlike on dry land, when we can like just put our arm down against the wall or the floor or a table to steady ourselves, we don't have that option. So all of that control is going to come from the pelvis, the core. Come on to our sides here. And then making your way up to hands and knees. I'm going to use the blanket to pad my knees here. Coming into this tabletop position. So I have the knees here underneath my hips and the wrists underneath my shoulders. And maybe your options for the hands would be loose fist or on your forearms here. Doesn't really matter or change what we're doing because we're circling the hips. So we bring the hips out towards one side, back towards your heels, bring the hips over towards the other side, and bring it forward again. So inhaling as you shift to one side and back, and exhaling as you shift to the other side and forward. So this is not really pelvic movement. This is side bending through the waist. The pelvis is actually staying relatively stable. And if you think about the hands and knees as a tabletop position, it's really just sort of like the circling motion of the top of the table, reverse directions. So here, maybe we start to loosen up and mobilize some of the muscle and connective tissue around the pelvis. There's a big and thick swath of connective tissue in the lower back that sort of covers that lumbar spine. So from the back of the ribs down to the top of the pelvis here, that we're starting to loosen up a little bit, which might actually give you more freedom of movement at the pelvis. Bringing this back into that neutral tabletop position. And if we continue with this table analogy, taking your yoga block, place it on your sacrum. Okay, so we've moved from the clock to the table analogy here. So that block, or if you don't have a block, pretend it's there, and imagine that's a teacup. So it is fine china and hot tea. We do not want that teacup to fall off the side. So firm the belly. So this is sort of like the undergirding of the table here. And then lengthen out through the spine. So tailbone and top of the head reach away from each other. So keeping that teacup there, reach one leg back. Toes pointing down. So this bird dog movement, you could keep it at just leg. Or for more challenge, reach the opposite arm forward. Have the thumb up so you don't engage too much through the neck. And then we're lowering the knee and the hand. And do the other side. So inhale, reach the leg back. Option to reach that opposite arm forward, thumb up. And then we exhale to lower. And go side to side here. So inhale, reach out, lengthen. Exhale to lower. And for me, when I think about that teacup here on the tabletop, not letting it fall off or spill as we take supports away, it makes me really slow down and engage my core as I lower, and especially right when I get almost to the knee and the hand down. So here, not so much pelvic mobility, but pelvic stability. Strengthening the muscles that we eventually want to react with when the boat isn't steady. All right, bring the hand and the knee back down here. It might feel good to do a few cat-cow movements. Or shaking out the wrist. And then from here, we're going to come into a puppy pose. Now, I'm going to use my 2 yoga blocks. You don't have to have them. If you've got some tension and tightness in your shoulders, this may not be the best position. So keep that in mind. So puppy, we're going to keep our hips over the knees, relatively speaking. And then bring your elbows forward on the blocks or on the floor. Palms together, sort of like prayer. And then let your forehead and chest come down towards the floor. The forehead might be there. Chest most likely will not be on the floor, but you're letting the chest sink towards the floor here. If the arm position doesn't work, take those blocks out. You could have the hands stacked under the forehead. Notice here in puppy, we're in a forward tilt of the pelvis. So if we're still thinking about the back of the pelvis, tailbone being 6 o'clock, the top of the sacrum being 12 o'clock, tip 6 o'clock down towards the floor. And then tip 12 o'clock down towards the floor. And again, exhale, press 6 o'clock towards the floor. Inhale, 12 o'clock towards the floor.
Let's do a few more. So it's tailbone down, 6 o'clock towards the floor. Tailbone up, 12 o'clock towards the floor. Couple more here. So feel how when you do 6 o'clock towards the floor, tailbone down, those lower abdominal muscles are working here. That's our rectus abdominis. All right, inhale, releasing. And you could press up here, coming forward, however you want to get out of that position, and coming back up here to the hands and knees position. And we'll stretch one leg back, toes tucked under. This is our toe rocking movement here. So you're pressing the heel back, so you stretch through the calf and then shift forward, bending through the toe joints. And we'll do a few more of those, and especially if you haven't done much stretching today. For me and my body, sometimes this is the one where I can tell, oh gosh, you haven't done any down dog today. You haven't done any calf stretches today. So you could stay with this. This is the more gentle version of that stretch. Or make this into a half down dog. So as you push the heel back, press the hips up so you stretch through the calf. And then lower the knee, bend those toes shifting forward. So you exhale, push back. And then lift the hips up. Inhale, lower, shift forward. I'm going to do one more. So this is going to give me more calf stretch here. Remember that more doesn't mean it's always better for you. So deciding. So that knee down, switching legs. You start with that toe rock. This is a good place to assess how tight am I in the calves, the toe. Am I feeling the arch of my foot here? It could be that keeping it more gentle is better for you at this moment. Or you could turn this into that half down dog where the heel goes back, we press the hips up, and then inhale, lower, shift forward. We'll do a few more. All right, lowering on down here. Take a moment to come into a child's or puppy pose, or sit back on the heels, or stand up on the knees and shake those wrists out, roll the shoulders. So I'm setting us up in down dog. And if down dog is a challenging pose for you, you could always come back into a puppy, which is like a kneeling down dog, or stay with the toe rock. For down dog, hands are a little forward of shoulders, fingers spread, hips up and back. Now I'm tight enough my calves and my hamstrings that if I try to straighten my knees, I start to round through the low back, and I kind of locked out pelvic and low back here. So I'm going to bend my knees and push that the sitting bones up and back. Maybe think about tilting the tailbone or the 6 o'clock up towards the ceiling a little bit. And then from here, we're going to do that, imagining that back of the pelvis is a clock and it's crooked, and we shift it towards one side and then the other. Or maybe think about it like a steering wheel that we're turning right and then turning left. Let the head relax between the upper arms. And you'll probably do a little pedal of the feet here as we swivel that clock on its axis. Bring it back into center, looking forward. We're stepping the left foot between the hands. And if it doesn't get there in the first round, lower the right knee, left hand helping this foot forward, ankle underneath the knee, back knee lowers, and we're lifting up here into this upright position. So often when we go into lunges, we've tipped 6 o'clock back and 12 o'clock forward, which is fine, except for we don't get to stretch our hip flexors. So think about lengthening the tailbone towards the earth. So we're not going to tuck and bring 6 o'clock forward, but bring 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock in line with each other. And for some of you, this is already going to give you a hip flexor stretch on the right side. If not, you keep 6 o'clock and 12 o'clock in line with each other and bend the front knee a little bit more. Don't let 6 o'clock tip back or 12 o'clock come forward. Keep them in line, and then you'll start to feel this stretch and opening through that right hip flexor here.
You could stay with this or hold elbows and reach up. Take a few breaths here as we open up through that right hip flexor. Hip flexors. Remembering there's 5 hip flexors on each hip, so it's not just one muscle. And your exhale, we'll bring the hands down to the floor and step this back into a plank. Lower both knees, core stays engaged, and you lower it down to the floor. Elbows toward your back pockets, peel the head and chest up off the floor, low cobra. Maybe you press higher, and this might bring that 12 o'clock off the floor here. Tuck your toes, use your abs. You could go through hands and knees or directly to down dog by engaging those lower abdominal muscles. We've already activated them quite a bit today. Take a moment here pedaling the feet and that swiveling of the clock, or thinking about it, that back of the pelvis like a steering wheel that we're turning right and left. Looking forward, this time it's right foot between the hands, help it there, lower the back knee and lift the torso. All right, so hip flexors, when they're tight, they're gonna tip the pelvis forward. So if we wanna overcome that and start to stretch the hip flexors, we get 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock in line with each other. Not a tuck under, not 6 o'clock forward of 12, right in line. Start to feel that openness in the left side. Keep 12 and 6 o'clock aligned, and then bend that front knee so you could feel that more stretch through there. You don't have to go very far. Most of us will not need to go very far to feel that stretch, that lengthening, the opening. Hands could stay down or hold elbows and lengthen them towards the ceiling. There's one hip flexor that actually skips over the pelvis. It connects the thigh bone directly to the spine. And so you might feel that stretch here in through the abdomen going towards the front of the spine. We'll bring both hands down around that front foot, back knee up, step the back foot to the front foot. Here's our forward fold. Listen for your options. And see what works for your body. That ragdoll version, knees bent, upper body draped over, top of the head hanging down. Or this sit back forward fold, that's how I kind of shorthanded in my notes, is feet wide, butt back, forearms on your thighs. So this version takes all the compression out of the spine, out of the disc, and takes some of the stretch off the hamstrings. So if the ragdoll one is a little intense or you're working with low bone density, herniated disc, this is your version. Either pose, you could sway a little forward back. Try to take some tension on the neck and jaw, maybe gently turning the head side to side. We'll bring that weight shift back to center, look forward, and then with strong legs, come on up to stand. Take a couple of backward shoulder rolls from here. All right, so we're actually going to use the wall here for a bit. If you're at home and you don't have a lot of wall space, you could also use a door. So we're actually going to be backing up and leaning against the wall. If you're leaning against the door, make sure the door is latched all the way so that you don't end up falling through the door. So we're doing those same pelvic clocks we did on our back at the very beginning of practice. Now we're doing it here with our back against the wall. So you're going to back up here, get the back of your pelvis and your shoulders on the wall. If you can, the head on the wall too. But you're going to need to walk your feet out. So maybe a foot or so, heels a foot or so forward so that you can get the pelvis, the shoulders, maybe the head on the wall. And then bend your knees a little bit. So it's not a big like wall squat position, but we are going to hold that bent knee position. So think about how we were at the beginning of practice on our backs, knees bent, feet flat. Here we are again. The back of that pelvis is the clock. So here are forward and backward pelvic tilts. So let's press 12 o'clock. So the top of the sacrum presses into the wall. So tailbone tips forward. And then we press 6 o'clock, tailbone into the wall. 12 o'clock goes forward and you feel the bigger gap between the wall and your low back. So you exhale, press 12 o'clock into the wall, 6 o'clock towards the center of the room. Inhale, 6 o'clock into the wall, 12 o'clock forward. Let's do that a few more times. I feel like there's a little more feedback on the wall than there is on the floor. That's a good way to kind of feel it. Now, I want you to find neutral between 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Right? So you're kind of at that little axis where all the hands are spinning around. And then now we're going to think about 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock, whichever side, just pick which one is 3 and 9. And we're going to press 3 o'clock into the wall, and 9 o'clock's going to come forward, right? So the butt cheek's coming off the wall, that knee's going to go forward. And then the other way, I can't remember what I said, 3 o'clock into the wall, 9 o'clock forward. So we exhale, press 9 o'clock into the wall, 3 o'clock forward. Inhale, switch it. So my shoulders aren't coming away from the wall. My head's not coming away from the wall. In fact, if you have space, you could bring your arms out, letting the backs of the shoulders connect with the wall. Or maybe you have space for more cactus or arms down. So you're not tilting the shoulders away from the wall. Did you remember to breathe? All right, bring it back to center. Let's take a little break. So come up, shake out your hips, roll the shoulders. So it's that subtlety, core working here, back muscles. You might have felt your glutes a little bit on that one because they're supporting you. Come back again, hips, back of the pelvis, shoulders, maybe the head on the wall here. So we did those two motions, the tipping forward, the tipping back, and the tilting forward and back, left and right. So now think of, you're going to keep this neutrality between 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock being even or stacked on top of each other. And now this time, instead of pushing one side away, we're going to tilt one side down. So I'm lengthening through the side body while I shorten through the other one, and then I switch it. So imagine the clock on the wall is crooked, and you tilt it one way to try to fix it. You go too far, and then you tilt it the other way. Or maybe it's like a steering wheel type of motion. Now this is probably a little bit more closer to the type of movement that you're needing to do in the boat, but nothing ever happens in one plane of movement in the body. Typically all three planes of movement. So it's not just going to be tip up and tip down. You're going to have to do subtle rotation or subtle tipping, pelvic tilting forward and back. Bring this back into center, and then we're going to come on up. Whew. Shake out those legs, let it go a little bit, shake out your arms. We're going to find that again in some of these standing poses. So starting up here at the front of the mat, or whatever practice space you have, take a big step back with this left foot. So we're coming into a crescent lunge, which could mean back heel up. If this doesn't work for balance or big toes, you're going to shorten the stance, back knee down. But front knee is bending. And we're starting here. So if your hip flexors are tight, which I'm betting a lot of you they are, this pose starts to tip the pelvis forward. So 12 o'clock's going forward and 6 o'clock is going back. We're going to find that 12 and 6 o'clock here. All right, so let's do hands on the hips, and I'll actually give you a little bit of feedback. So we're going to tip 6 o'clock forward, and you're going to need to bend the back knee to tip 6 o'clock forward. 12 o'clock goes backish. And then tip 12 o'clock forward. The back knee will straighten. So we exhale, bring 6 o'clock forward, the back knee bends. Inhale, bring 6 o'clock back knee straightens. And if you're like really confused here about the clock, it's tailbone forward, back knee bends, tailbone back knee straightens. One more. But notice how I'm not moving my upper body. This is lower body. All right, now I want you to find the place where 6 and 12 o'clock are aligned. And you might need to bend your back knee to get there. Keep that. Now lengthen the spine. Reach the top of the head towards the ceiling. You could stay here with your arms or let them float up. Palms face each other, shoulders are relaxed. So the upper body stayed relatively still while we tilted the pelvis. And that's closer to what you want in the boat. All right, pivot the back heel down. We're opening into warrior two. Now let's pause, take a little break. Straighten the front legs, swing the arms out. So we're gonna do it differently here in the warrior two, in that the pelvis is gonna be stable and we're moving the upper body like ribs and above. So when you're ready, rebend the front knee. Now the front heel is roughly aligned with the arch of the back foot here on your mat. And then we will think about where are 12 and 6 o'clock. So if 6 o'clock is back, 12 o'clock is forward, stack 6 and 12 o'clock here. Reach the top of the head up so you lengthen out through the spine. Reaching your arms forward and back. Now lower body is going to stay here, but we're moving the upper body. So I'm going to shift my ribs forward, like over the front thigh, and then I'm shifting my ribs back over the pelvis. Inhale, shift ribs forward. Exhale, shift them back over the pelvis. So we've changed it. We've anchored the different part of the body. So instead of the pelvis tilting here, pelvis stays stable and we're shifting forward and back. And we start to use the same muscles here, obliques, core, pelvic floor, in this shifting. All right, come on up here, let the arms go, and we'll step the back foot to the front foot. Shake out your legs and roll the shoulders. We're gonna do that again, other side. You stay at the front of your mat. I'm gonna change which is the front of my mat here so my back doesn't end up to you. This time it's the right foot back into that crescent lunge. And here, hips square to the front, front knee bent, either back heel up or shorten stance, that back heel down. So my hip flexors are tight. If I don't think about it, my clock tips 12 o'clock forward, 6 o'clock back. So we're gonna work on this. We'll find center, but let's go back and forth to more of the extremes. So we're gonna tip 6 o'clock forward, tailbone forward. You could bend that back knee and then tip 6 o'clock back knee straightens. Exhale, 6 o'clock forward or tailbone forward, back knee bends. Inhale, tailbone back or 6 o'clock back, knee straightens. Do a few more here. So upper body is staying relatively stable. If you're rounding and arching like cat-cow, bring your hands to your ribs. Remind them to stay in place as you move here from the lower back, the pelvis, the hips, the knees. All right, find where 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock are stacked. You might have to do that with a back knee bend if those hip flexors are tight. Stay here or float the arms up, palms face each other. Whew. Shoulders relax away from the ears. We're opening into warrior two. Pivot the back heel down. Arms reach out. Take a little break here. So straighten the front leg. Swing your arms out. Front heel roughly lining up with the arch of the back foot. My right foot is pointing out towards the long edge of the mat or towards that right side. Rebend that front knee. You're in charge of how deep this bend is. So just keeping it relatively in line with the ankle. And again, so the cue I usually use in yoga is tailbone down. But that's stacking 12 o'clock over 6 o'clock. Or 6 o'clock under 12 o'clock, however you want to think about it. Lengthen the spine, reach the top of the head up. So we have the stability from the lower body to find more space in the upper body. Arms reaching out. Lower body stays here. We inhale, shift ribs over the front leg. And then exhale, shift ribs over the pelvis again. Inhale, shift ribs forward. Exhale, shift ribs back. A few more here. So maybe you're feeling those obliques working, the stability here through the hip musculature. Maybe you're feeling the pelvic floor holding and stabilizing. It's harder to feel. Let the arms go, step it forward, shake it out, roll those shoulders here. All right, coming into balance. And when you stand on one foot, If you don't have a lot of connection to the core and the hips, often that standing leg hip will sink out to the side. So let's focus on that here. We'll bring one foot forward, spread those toes, place them down in that spread out position. And I should say, the squishier your surface, the more challenging it is to balance. So you could step off your mat, you could be over by the wall or a steady piece of furniture. So toes spread, shift your weight onto it, and then bring the other foot into this tiptoe version, right? So I'm not completely off this one leg. I got the toes down and the knee bent. And notice even here, since you've got most of your weight on that straight leg, does that hip tend to sink out to the side? And you've got 9 o'clock up and 3 o'clock down, or whichever way it is. Can you bring it so 9 and 3 o'clock are level? Can you stack 12 and 6 o'clock and reach the top of the head up? Focus your gaze on a spot straight ahead, and that'll give you feedback as to whether that pelvis is shifting. You could stay here toes down, or you could bring that knee up, hold the shin or back of the thigh. And then notice, did you hike that side up? Did you standing hip come out to the side? So think 9 and 3 o'clock level, 12 and 6 stacked, top of the head reaching up. Shoulders relaxed. Breathe. Feel how hard that foot and ankle are working here. Now, this is a little trickier. We're going to hold on to that knee and bring it out to the side. And if you go really far, it's going to throw that pelvis off. So just bring it a little bit out. My hip's working hard. All right, bring it back to center and let it go. Shake it out, reset. It's always different on the other side. You always have to, need to stay just as mindful as the first side. Bring that foot forward, spread the toes. Shift your weight onto it. So we're coming into the tiptoe version. We all start here, even if that's where you stay. We're all gonna start here to set it up, because is that standing hip sinking out to the side? If so, bring 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock so they're level. Right? So that clock got tilted and we just gotta bring it back to level. Now stack 12 and 6 o'clock. Reach the top of the head up towards the sky. Stay with this, or maybe play with it, right? You might just try, maybe you can hold it for a second or two, or hold the shin or back of the thigh. Now don't let the weight of the leg pull you down. So breastbone up, top of the head up, shoulders relaxed. Breathing here. And then if you're able, or maybe try, bring that knee out to the side. You could always put it back down, right, if you needed to. Where did those hips go? Are 3 and 9 o'clock level? Do you have 6 and 12 stacked? Are you breathing? Bring it back to center, let it go. All right, shake it out, roll those shoulders. Whew. All right, y'all, just a little bit more here, and then we get to take a little breather. So we're gonna come down to the floor, hands and knees again, but we're gonna use the block here under one knee. And, or this could be folded up blanket or towel. You want some elevation under there and something that won't squish too much. So I've got this under my knee and the top of my shin, and I'm rising up on it. So if I had another block here under this left leg, I'd be level. But because I don't, I'm going to lower this one knee towards the floor. So my pelvis is no longer level. And then I'm going to pull it up, that side of the pelvis, towards the ceiling. So I inhale, lower, let's call it 3 o'clock, towards the floor. And then exhale, lift 3 o'clock towards the ceiling. Inhale, lower that pelvis, or 3 o'clock. Exhale, lift it towards the ceiling. Now, you're going to feel the outer right hip muscles working here and the core, because that's enough. All right, let's come on down. Wag the tail, circle your hips, take a little break.
All right, other side. So we're going to have that block or folded blanket under the knee and the top of the shin. You're on hands, or maybe loose fist is working better for you. Start with 3 and 9 o'clock level, and then lower 9 o'clock towards the earth, and then pull it back up towards the ceiling, or whichever side it is, the left side or the right side. Lower it on the inhale, exhale, lift it. So we're not level here. We're going up and down so that we can use these side hip muscles. The glute medius primarily is doing this. Breathe. All right, that's enough, especially after all we've done. Come on down here, move that block out of the way. Taking a little break here in a puppy or child's pose. Letting the head rest. Doesn't matter where 12 or 6 or 3 are right now. Come back to your lengthened breath. Returning to your intention for the practice. So the subtlety of this work is where it's at, right? We could challenge our core probably more with planks or other ways. But it doesn't matter if you're super strong. If you don't have control of the core, the pelvis, and the spine, what does it matter? It's not functional. Slowing it down, finding that control, this fine control, is going to help you in the boat. All right, we're coming onto our backs. So we're getting ready for bridge pose. And we're coming up in bridge, and then we're going to find 12 and 6 o'clock again in bridge. So heels lined up with your sitting bones, arms are by the sides. Lift your hips and back. Once you're up, tuck the shoulder blades in towards the spine a little bit closer. Arms pressing into the floor. Interlace fingers, but that's not the goal. Just pressing the arms into the floor. And then kind of feel where is that pelvic clock. So for me, there's a little bit of 12 o'clock towards the ceiling and 6 o'clock towards the floor. Can you bring 6 o'clock towards the ceiling, 12 o'clock towards the floor without lowering the back and hips? And then do it the other way. 6 o'clock towards the floor, 12 o'clock towards the ceiling. And reverse it, 12 o'clock towards the floor, 6 o'clock. So it's a pelvic tilt. Find neutral. Lift higher without misaligning 12 and 6 o'clock. And breathe. All right, arms out. Whew, let it go. Rock the knees side to side. My core and my hips have been worked out. So these last few minutes, we're going to allow them to rest here. So I'm going to have you come onto your belly. And we're coming into this frog leg position. So let's all do the same side. Left knee coming out to the side and lower the head and the arms here. So that inner left knee is resting on the floor. And you could always slide a blanket under it or scooch over so the yoga mat is under that inner left knee. Head, arms resting wherever it feels the most comfortable to you. And make any adjustments you need to get more comfortable. Knee higher or lower, or foot closer in or out. Maybe the head turned differently. All of these things can subtly change what you're feeling here. And the goal of this position is to release tension on the muscles on the back of that left hip. So these buttock muscles here, we're allowing them to let go in this position. So neither are they being stretched, nor are we contracting them. This is the off switch position for those muscles. And because our goal is to relax them, start to lengthen out and slow down your breathing here. When we slow down the breath, it signals to the nervous system that you are safe, that your body can rest, that your muscles do not have to stand at attention. And so that will help us release more of that tension on the back of the hip. Take a few more breaths here. So I'm going to change this into a reclined twist. So if you think about that moving twist we did at the beginning, that opening and closing the page of the book, we're going to get there, or at least to a holding position. So listen carefully as we get there from here. So rise up onto your forearms and lift your left elbow up. We're sliding the right arm underneath, so you come to rest on your right shoulder and you roll towards the outer right hip. Now you could bring that right arm underneath your head here to support it. This might be the place for the blanket to put underneath the head. You can see how it goes. And then, can't find the yoga block. You could put the yoga block here underneath that inner right knee. So here we are, where we swept that left arm back. So you could bring that gaze up towards the ceiling. Maybe this left arm comes down to the floor, maybe it doesn't. Sometimes it's easier if that left elbow stays bent. Breathe. If you need to slide that block back with you a little bit, you can. Now we're starting to stretch into some of the obliques here on the left side, which we've used a lot today. You might be feeling the outer hip, that glute medius that we've used in that hands and knees position with the block under the knee and the balance pose, leveling the pelvis, leveling 3 and 9 o'clock. And don't forget that breath. We are twisted here, so we think about that canister of the core, right? So the pelvic floor and pelvis is twisted one direction, and the ribs and therefore the diaphragm are twisted the other way. So you're going to have to work a little bit for the breath here. All right. We're going to straighten that leg, roll onto your belly. You might bend the knees and rock the legs side to side a little bit here. And then we do the other side. So right knee in that frog leg position. Head and arms are resting. Make any adjustments you need to. Don't assume that this is the same as the other side. Probably slightly different here. Slowing down the breath. This is that breath we started with. Taking this opportunity to return to your intention for the practice, this 2 to 3 words about why you've shown up, why you have made this time for yourself and your body. This position again, relaxing the muscles in the back of that right hip, buttocks area. All right, so we're coming into that twist from here. So seems like it shouldn't be complicated, but we'll rise up onto the forearms, lift your right elbow, slide your left arm under like a thread the needle to come rest on that left shoulder. You could bring a block underneath that right inner knee. Maybe you support the head with the arm or the blanket, and then open that book. So you're bringing that arm back here. Make sure I've stayed in the frame. And if your shoulder is like way up, to bring that arm down, bend the elbow, see if that lets it come down a little bit, or slide another block under that upper arm, or folded blanket under that upper arm here, so you can rest into that position a little bit better. Gaze up towards the ceiling. Maybe you slid that block in a little closer. Where's the breath? It might be a little bit restricted here, but try to work on lengthening the breath. See if that slower breath allows you to stretch these breathing muscles here. Rib cage muscles, diaphragm, the abdominals here, breathing muscles for that forceful breath out. Couple more breaths. And then from here, let's bend both knees and roll onto your back. Position yourself back onto the mat. Maybe hug the knees in or find a happy baby. Rocking a little bit here. And we are going to come into relaxation. I'm going to come into legs up the wall with a folded blanket underneath my hips, because that's a relaxation pose for the pelvic floor, which maybe you didn't feel like you were working, but you definitely did if you were able to do any of that pelvic clock work. But legs up on the chair, folded blanket on the hips is also pelvic floor muscle relaxation position. So I'm just scooting sideways to the wall, bringing the feet up, lifting the hips to slide that folded blanket underneath the back of my pelvis, underneath the clock. So we're padding the clock here, just to continue that analogy. Could be crossed ankles or straight up or legs out. So in this position, with the hips bent at about 90-ish degrees and the pelvis lifted, we're actually tipping that clock back. So 12 o'clock towards the floor, 6 o'clock up. But we're held there, right? So I'm not using my abs to do this. The wall and the prop are doing that. And that allows the bottom of that core canister, the pelvic floor muscles, get to relax. So same as that frog leg position, allowing the back of the hip muscles to relax. This position allowing those pelvic floor muscles to relax. And if you've been upright all day, the pelvic floor has held your abdominal contents in place, not allowing them to spill out through your opening in your pelvis. Take an inhale through the nose. Open the mouth, let out a sigh. You can do it again. Let it go. Releasing that pressure in the core canister as you exhale. And then let your breath go. We're no longer thinking about clocks or when to breathe. Just allowing the body to rest for the next few minutes.
Begin to deepen your breath. Bring some gentle movements back in at the fingers, the toes, the wrists, the ankles, turning the head. If it would feel good for a bigger stretch, you could reach your arms overhead. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, let it go. We'll bend the knees and roll to your side. Pause here for a moment. Taking this opportunity to appreciate your body, your breath, your health, and your yoga practice. Pressing yourself up. Thank you all for being here, sharing your practice, your energy, your time. The light in me honors the light in each of you. Namaste.